So yesterday afternoon, I think we actually carried this moments after it started. There was a press conference called by the Montreal Police, the SPVM, to announce something about the tragic fire that took 7 lives in Old Montreal back in March. And nobody really knew what was going on until we found out that now it is considered a criminal investigation. Here's a little bit of a conversation David Shane, who's the inspector who announced this yesterday, had earlier today with Andrew Carter. Listen to this.
We located the zone of origin of the fire, and in that zone, we collected elements and had them analyzed by a chemist from the Laboratoire de Sciences Judiciaires and Médecine Légale, and they confirmed that it was indeed accelerant that was used in the fire. The investigators need to reconstruct what the structure looked like before and how the fire progressed. And as they go, they can eliminate different theses and eventually be able to locate the zone of origin of the fire. You know, the Montreal Police never stopped. Yeah. We never abandoned. We never gave up. And even though we're not talking about this investigation in the media, doesn't mean we're not working. It's all the contrary.
By the way, to that point about, the police never having given up, I should point out yesterday, one of the questions, and we talked to Kelly Gregg from CTV about this, was why has it taken this long?
5 months.
The fire was in March to get there, and he explained this is what's been going on in the interim, and that's why.
It's not an easy process. These things take time, but I would imagine, again, the people involved, survivors and people who lost loved ones, would want to know why the delay. And there's so many more answers yet to come. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we do know because of this, because of the fact that it's now a criminal investigation, the coroner's investigation is on pause until this one is now completed. So in paying attention to the story yesterday, a couple of things I pointed out when we did the interview. Number one, I couldn't remember there were still 22 people in that building. Yes. Right? We know 6 eventually ended up in hospital and they're okay. And of course, tragically, the 7 who died. Catherine JOYAL, a former tenant of that Old Montreal building, was talking yesterday. And I guess, Catherine, from what I understand, you have been in touch with the police. Now, I want to clarify, you were not in that building the day of, but you had lived in that building in the basement. Is that correct?
I've lived in the building between 2009 and 2012, so for 2.5 years, and it's a while ago, but because of my knowledge of the architectural configuration of the building, I was reached out to by fire investigators, not by the police. I just want to specify that. And I helped them draft out a plan, like a floor plan of the basement. Okay. And when you were living there, Catherine, were there safety concerns? Did you fear for your own safety ever? Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was... It was an apartment. I mean, I lived in 2 apartments in the basement, one of which we got a lease transfer for. So we moved to a better and bigger apartment after about a year. But the first apartment I lived in had maybe like a half a foot wide cast iron pipe running all throughout it at a level of about like 5 feet. So people had to duck under it in order to cross the building, and people would often hit their heads and just bleed from it. It was just an example of something that was unsafe. Mm-hmm.
So we found out after the fact, of course, the owner of the building, the fact that the people, renting that place on Airbnb, and the fact that some of the units had no windows. When you were in there, so long before, right, 10 years before that, had you expressed some concern to the owner of the building at the time about, the fact you felt unsafe? Anything at all?
No, actually, I was never really supported by the owner of the building, because the owner of the building, Monsieur Benamor, was actively, I take the liberty to say harassing us at the time, and would often come into our apartment at 6:30 a.m. And just like bolt towards the bed and sit on the side of the bed while yelling at us. What? And it was absolutely horrendous. It was a really traumatic experience to live there for 2 years and to deal with all of his techniques of intimidation, harassment, trying to get us to leave the building. And so, and by the way, our apartment ended up being turned into an Airbnb afterwards. So I'm not sure what his agenda was, but he really wanted us to leave the building, not because we were bad tenants, but because he had plans.
So when you first moved in there, you moved in there just as a regular rental? You dealt with him then?
Yes, I moved in with, my partner at the time was living there already.
Okay.
And I moved in with him, and there was a different owner at the time. So Mr. Benamor bought the building off of the old owner, who was, just an aging, very quiet old man. Mm-hmm. We had no issues with him whatsoever. And as soon as the transfer was made, there was a huge change in the dynamics inside the building. We would hear yelling almost every day. It wasn't just us being harassed, but all the other tenants that were there prior to Monsieur Benamor making the acquisition of the building.
So he wanted you out, Catherine, and the other tenants out, who whatever his plans were for the building, you were not part of them. Were police ever involved at any time?
Yeah, we called the police a couple of times, and it was really hard in order to get them to come in time, because what the police explained to us at the time is that they had to be present and witness the harassment in order to open a case.
Yeah, otherwise it's your word against his otherwise, right?
Yes,
okay.
And I felt pretty vulnerable. I wasn't exactly schooled in tenant laws at this time, but I'm a bit better now because of that experience, because we went to le tribunal administratif du logement, which was la régie, and we had to fight for ourselves and defend our rights in front of the judge, which the judge ended up siding with us and letting us stay, but it wasn't the end of the nightmare.
What does that mean? So even though you had a judgment that said you could stay, he continued to harass you? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah. We there was a morning where 6 men that we had never seen before just busted into the apartment in that very similar technique of just coming into the apartment. They had the key. They were yelling. They had video cameras. They were all yelling, "Get out, get out!" And it was incomprehensible.
Holy cow.
We called the police, and Monsieur Benamor was in the hallway. He was there. He was just watching over, making sure that whatever he had commanded was done right.
I can't help but think, too, when you say that the nightmare didn't end there, that this ongoing situation, this tragedy, and that these lives were needlessly lost, continue to be part of the nightmare for you. What's your reaction to this now becoming a criminal investigation?
Well, I've been shocked by the tragedy from the beginning. I heard that it had happened. I was like, oh, my God, that can't be. Yes, it is my building. I just had a feeling when I saw the news that a building in the old port had burnt down. I had a feeling that it would be this building. And when I got the news, one of the fire investigators I had met with in March wrote me yesterday before the press conference and told me that just to make sure to watch the news and, just to give me a heads up. And I thought that was really considerate because it's absolutely awful. I'm not a victim of the fire. I'm just someone who really has a lot of solidarity towards the families and the victims themselves. And I want to make sure that any bit of information I can provide will help in the investigation. Even though I'm not a victim, I'm still absolutely touched by it. I think it's really, really sad. And I can't begin to imagine what the families are going through because it brings up a whole bunch of other questions now. So who, why, I really hope that they get answers.
Were you surprised to learn that it had been deliberately set?
Oh, yeah, I was. I was under the impression that it had been something electrical. There were lots of old wiring. It was, it was an old building, and it wasn't kept very well. So I thought it was an electrical panel that had started burning, and then because everything was made of wood inside, it was like wood panelings on the walls and wood stairs. It probably got engulfed in flames very quick.
We have to wrap up. I did want to ask you one last thing. Have you heard from your ex-landlord ever since this happened in that time, in those 5 months?
No, I think that he sent his lawyer to defend him after I did an interview on a French radio station. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's ever said anything publicly since the fire happened. The lawyer yesterday, I just have to specify that the lawyer yesterday, he came out with a statement saying that we were blaming Monsieur Benamar, and now we should realize that he's not the one who set the fire. He's not guilty. I'm really paraphrasing, but It's not exactly what he said. But all I'm saying is that he could still be found liable because he had a responsibility to keep people safe, and I don't think he did that.
Catherine, I thank you so much for sharing your story, finding a lot of stuff that we never knew before.
And I'm so glad you're speaking up and speaking out about this. It can't be easy for you either to relive any of this.
Okay, thank you for having me.
You bet. Catherine JOYAL, former tenant from years before in that building. And had you heard any of this? The landlord busting in the middle of the morning?
No, that's all new. But this idea that she helped the fire inspector recreate the layout of the basement apartments, having lived there in 2 different apartments herself.